This is Module 3 of Taking the High Road, Drug Education for Offenders. Module 3, Heroin, Morphine, Opiates, and Related Drugs. The known history of morphine extends well back into ancient history. Morphine comes from opium and has been used for over 6,000 years. Writings from ancient Sumeria, which is part of modern Iraq, detail the use of opium for various medical conditions. It was also used in ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. The famous book by Homer titled The Odyssey, which was written nearly 2,900 years ago, refers to opium use. It was called nepenthe back then. Long ago, someone noticed that a whitish-brown, gummy substance oozed out of the large seed pod that grew on the poppy plant. Obviously, they ingested a bit of it or got someone else to try it. When the substance is dried, it turns brown and is essentially pure opium. It was used for all sorts of problems, from coughing to pain relief, dysentery, fever, gout, and more. But over 1,000 years ago, medical writings related that the drug is highly addictive. Opium was sold in many different forms and was most popular as laudanum, a syrupy liquid. It was commonly used in America in the 1800s, and many movies about that time period show people using it, as well as smoking opium in dens, places where a person would go to use. Opium products were openly sold virtually everywhere in America until 1906. In 1805, a chemist found that 10% of opium was made up of a substance he called morphium, named after the Greek god of dreams, Morpheus. In 1832, another active substance was found in opium, and it was named codeine. During America's Civil War and a war in Germany, morphine and codeine were essentially the only drugs available to soldiers for pain, with alcohol often used at the same time. So many soldiers became addicted to the drug that in 1898 the German Bayer Company produced a similar but more powerful drug to treat the addiction. They called the drug heroin. The word heroin in English means heroic. It didn't work, of course, and made the situation worse. In 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act began to restrict the sales of opium products, and in 1914, another law cut off easy access to the drug entirely. In 1925, heroin was made illegal in the United States, but it is used legally for medical purposes in some other countries. One of the effects that happened with heroin being made illegal was that it became expensive and a black market developed. That created a host of other problems. It's also true that heroin was depicted as a black or African American issue, but that, of course, was not an accurate picture of the issue. Heroin and morphine. Technically, heroin is known as diacetylmorphine. Because of the chemical nature of the first portion of the term diacetyl, it gets into the brain faster and in a higher level. But once in the brain, the two acetyl pieces of the molecule break off, and what's left is actually morphine. But since so much gets into the brain so quickly, it's about 3 times as powerful as regular morphine. While heroin is illegal, it remains one of the more common drugs of abuse in America. It can be smoked, injected, snorted, or taken orally, although swallowing it is rare. Since it's more powerful than morphine, it is the preferred drug between the two. Morphine and related drugs are typically used medically for 3 basic purposes: pain relief, diarrhea, and cough suppression. There are some derivatives of the drug used for anesthesia. A major danger from all of these drugs, with a couple of exceptions, is the fact that the breathing rate slows. Death from heroin overdose and other related substances almost always occurs because the person stops breathing. The symptoms of heroin overdose include a comatose or non-responsive person who has constricted or small pupils and shallow, slow breathing. A drug called Narcan or naloxone or Naline is used to treat overdoses. One of the causes of heroin and related drug overdoses is that the purity of the street drugs is unreliable. When people buy heroin in the underground or illegal market, they really don't know what they're getting. Sometimes the heroin has been cut by other substances added to it so much that it isn't very strong. On the other hand, at times the heroin hasn't been cut all that much, and an unsuspecting addict can overdose. One of the other main problems in heroin addiction is that a lot of users share needles. This causes the spread of a variety of diseases ranging from HIV, AIDS, to hepatitis. The heroin rush, tolerance, and dependence. People who use these drugs often seek a sense of euphoria or relaxation that actually can be felt as a rush, especially when it's injected. As we related in the module about tobacco, there are individual genetic factors at work. While many people experience the rush and feelings as pleasant, many others do not. In fact, a fairly large number of people who use these drugs find them quite unpleasant, even sickening. Tolerance to heroin and morphine happens fast. Most users have to greatly increase the amount they use to get the rush, and over time, the rush simply doesn't happen. Users who become very tolerant to the drug can overdose because they quickly increase how much they use. Dependence or addiction can also occur quickly. In addition, there are rituals or habits associated with heroin use that cause habituation the same way that cigarette smoking develops habituation. A user of morphine or heroin can be identified as dependent on the drug or addicted to it when withdrawal symptoms occur after the drug is stopped. Withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal from heroin addiction is not pleasant, but it is seldom life-threatening. But it's so unpleasant that it will cause the person to crave the drug and seek it out. As with cocaine, experiencing withdrawal can create a sense of desperation. The worst withdrawal symptoms can last more than 3 days after the drug is stopped. Anxiety and cravings are the first symptoms. After about 14 hours, the person feels as if he or she has the flu. They sweat, yawn, tear up in their eyes, and have a runny nose. Then they start having bumps appear on their skin, followed by aches and pains, muscle twitches, and hot and cold flashes. Then body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate all increase. Then the classic symptom of laying in the fetal position occurs, along with diarrhea and vomiting. There are prescription drugs that can help with such withdrawal. Overdoses and deaths. Heroin and related substances are often combined with a lot of other drugs. Earlier, we mentioned the speedball, a dangerous combination of opiates with speed. Cocaine, amphetamines, alcohol, tranquilizers, and many other drugs interact with heroin. This means the effects of the drug combinations are multiplied in unpredictable ways. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, River Phoenix, Jim Morrison, Lenny Bruce, and countless other well-known and lesser-known people died from accidental overdoses of heroin. But morphine and related drugs are also used in suicides. In fact, one of the earliest, best documented cases of what is called physician-assisted suicide happened in 1939 and involved an overdose of morphine. The assisted suicide occurred in London after an 83-year-old patient had suffered for over 20 years with painful cancer. Operation after operation had been done with the patient's jaw, which kept developing tumor after tumor. The patient had repeatedly refused to stop smoking cigars, a habit that caused him heart disease some 45 years earlier and then caused the cancer. After a long discussion and eventual agreement with his personal physician, the famous Dr. Sigmund Freud was given an overdose of morphine. No one knows what Freud might have accomplished had he never started smoking tobacco, but his life shows how powerful drug addiction can be. With drug addiction, it doesn't matter how smart or educated a person is. Drugs are powerful, and as we've related several times, there are genetic factors involved in virtually all aspects of addiction. Some people are more prone to addiction than others, and once people get hooked, getting unhooked can be extremely difficult. Other related prescription drugs. The term opioids is used to describe a class of drugs similar to morphine and opium that have been chemically made. These drugs are used in medicine for anesthesia, pain relief, and other purposes. Many of them are far more powerful than morphine or heroin and have found their way into abuse. For example, fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than morphine. There are several slang terms for the drug, including China White, Apache, TNT, Tango and Cash, and more. There are numerous other opioids that are typically obtained with prescriptions, such as oxycodone and hydrocodone. One unrecognized problem with some of these prescription drugs is that they are often combined with other pain relievers such as Tylenol. Abusers will typically take far more than the prescribed dose, leading to unsuspected liver damage from the Tylenol. However, as we have already stated, few abusers will cease using a drug because of possible damage, and many will take just about anything offered to them. Why do you think that happens? CROCODILE, DESOMORPHINE. It seems almost stupid to discuss this particular drug, but many professionals in drug treatment understand that drug abusers will try just about anything, even when they know it will probably lead to horrible consequences. CROCODILE, or desomorphine, is one such drug. Desomorphine was chemically derived from morphine in the late 1920s. The chemical changes made in the morphine molecule resulted in desomorphine being up to 10 times as strong as morphine. It creates sedation or sleep and relieves pain, but unlike morphine, it doesn't affect breathing. It acts quickly, but the effect doesn't last long. This is one reason why the drug is considered to be highly addictive. Around 2002, heroin addicts in Siberian Russia started making a home brew of desomorphine because heroin had become too expensive and was no longer easily obtained. The use of the drug stayed rather small until 2010, when Russia began seeing large numbers of addicts turning up with bizarre skin problems. Investigation revealed that the street name for the drug in Russia was crocodile because it caused dark scales to form on the skin. The scales look like crocodile scales. The drug was being produced in kitchens and bathrooms by mixing codeine with other chemicals in ways similar to how meth is cooked in America. But the chemicals used to make crocodile are gasoline, oil, paint thinner, and other toxic substances. The resulting desomorphine contains a lot of the chemicals that are used to cook it. Repeated use of the substance causes permanent skin scales, damage to bones, several types of brain damage, and frequent amputations of legs and arms are required. In 2013, the drug started appearing in the United States. There are also some cases where the toxic substances in the drug are so strong that some users suffered brain damage or death with the first use. Methadone. Methadone was created in Germany in 1937 and came to America in 1947. It was made as an alternative to morphine because its ability to relieve pain lasts much longer and it could be cheaply produced. Methadone is used today as a medicinal maintenance program for heroin and morphine addicts. In essence, methadone, when used correctly, keeps those addicts from going through withdrawal while not producing the highs of heroin. It is generally inexpensive and can allow addicts to lead normal lives. However, methadone is also widely abused. It is known that about 5,000 people die each year in America from methadone overdose.